We go ahead and call our Sandy Urban Renewal Board meeting to order. I'll do a quick review of tonight's agenda and then I'll ask Jeff to call the roll. We will start with the approval of the meeting minutes from the May 20th meeting. Under new business, we have a couple of intergovernmental agreement for Sandy. We have an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Sandy and our Urban Renewal Board. So I'm proving off here. And then we have a discussion assessing the grant programs and urban renewal strategic investments. With that, Jeff, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Board Member Maiden.
Present.
Board Member Smallwood.
Here.
Board Member Sheldon.
Here.
Board Member Walker.
Here.
Board Member Exner.
Here.
Board Member Hokinson.
Here.
Board Member Jones.
Here.
Board Chair Pulliam.
Here. Thank you for that, Jeff. Unless there's discussion or changes, is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 20th?
We'll make a motion, we approve minutes.
There's a second.
Second.
Ooh, I'm gonna give it to Carissa. She put her hand up. Motion from Board Member Sheldon, a second from Board Member Jones. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays. Motion carries. Under new business, we have the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Sandy. Tyler.
Thank you, Chair. So as you all know, the Urban Renewal Agency has been around for quite some time, late 90s, when that was originally adopted or approved. And at that time, there should have been an IGA that was developed between the Urban Renewal Agency and the city itself for the sharing of services, right? We have staff that are employed by the city of Sandy that provide a benefit to the Urban Renewal Agency, for example. And we don't have any formal agreement as to how that relationship works. This was an item that was brought up rather by our city attorney a few months back. And so we got an IGA that was developed, pretty standard boilerplate IGA that you would find between an urban renewal agency and a city. And so tonight we're just looking for adoption of that IGA to formalize the relationship between the city of Sandy and the Sandy Urban Renewal Agency. The adoption of this IGA has no budgetary impact, has no ramifications on the way that we operate currently. It's not going to change anything. It's just a formal document to solidify the relationship that we have between the two entities.
Any questions?
Who discovered it?
Our city attorney,
City Attorney.
yeah,
Oh, man.
so very low risk. We haven't done anything wrong as far as the way that we've operated with our budgets and with financial reporting or anything like that. It's just this missing formality that needs to be cleaned up.
Blame. Could blame anybody, I guess.
25 years past due, but
There may have even been one, I guess.
well, there may have been one that didn't get archived correctly at the time. We can't find documents related to that or any meeting minutes related to that, but it has been quite some time, and archiving practices have changed quite a bit since the late 90s. And so if there was one before, it's going to be null and void after this, and we'll have an updated IGA in place.
I don't think I can drag this out more.
I'm happy to answer any
No, do
additional
that.
questions.
So I move to approve the
No, I was just
IGA
gonna
between
read
the city of Sandy
the
and the Sandy
motion.
Urban Renewal Agency is provided in the meeting packet.
Okay,
There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
okay, motion from Board Member Walker, a second by Member Sheldon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays. Motion carries. All right, discussion on assessing grant programs and urban renewal strategic investments.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah.
So we've had on our to-do list for quite some time a larger discussion around strategic investment, priorities of the Urban Renewal Agency. That, has been sort of a moving target as to when we were going to get that scheduled. I had originally planned on bringing that before the board later this year or early next year, so we could get some of that discussion out of the way before the budget process started and then incorporate that feedback into the budget. However, we've had a couple other, grant inquiries that came through that brought this discussion before you tonight in a little bit of a quicker timeline than I had originally planned. And so really the intent tonight is to have a pretty free-flowing conversation between staff and the board on what your guys' priorities and visions are for the Urban Renewal Agency, what you'd like to see more of, what you'd like to see us bring before you from a strategic standpoint. Are you looking at more targeted reinvestment in a specific area of town? Are you looking for a specific program? Really, sort of just a change in philosophy, perhaps, if that's what comes out of tonight's meeting, or keep to what we've been doing and bring that back before the board and continue as business as usual. So not necessarily looking for any specific, invest X dollars here, but a conversation around what we'd like to see going forward and how we can.
Well, and I'll jump in on kind of how this item got onto the agenda and why it's here. There were some other items that were proposed to go on to the agenda to be in front of the Urban Renewal Board. I'm gonna discuss high level of a couple of those items and kind of let you know why I decided that it wasn't items to go onto this agenda, but I'm also not somebody who can't, through our discussions and, through what other board members want to do, doesn't mean that we're not going to look at it at a future point. But I do think that we've had a lot of discussions as a council body, as an Urban Renewal Board body about what we want to do with this fund. And I think that some of these proposals have really raised to the level, some of these discussion items. So I want to start. I'm not looking to disparage any business. I think that these businesses in our community are awesome. I think that they do really good things, but it really comes down to, is this a proper use of our taxpayer money and what we strategically want to do as an urban renewal agency, right? So one proposal that came in, and then I'm looking to staff to really please don't allow the mayor to say anything that's not true up here. So.
Do you want us to give a
Well-
brief recap?
Well, I want to get into the whole presentation. I want to speak high level on it, but if you feel the need or whatever, please, I'm not. So two presentations, one was from Grandma's House, childcare facility here in town that was looking to do a facade program, or maybe it was in our tenant improvement. It was within our tenant improvement program to do the play structure at the Grandma's House facility. For me, it raised a couple of questions. One is we've done a couple of investments with Grandma's House in the past. We've done tenant improvement programs. We've done facade improvement programs. Some of you may remember when Bethany was on our council. It was a real kind of a motivating point for her, a focus to look at childcare. And the council at that time, we developed within the Urban Renewal Agency and kind of these facade improvement programs, the ability for childcare businesses to apply for those because we want more capacity. We want more childcare to be available here in Sandy. What I didn't see in this proposal was the ability for more childcare and that it was going to bring in more capacity. I also didn't see where in our council goals it laid out that we are going to provide higher quality childcare, right? Like we wanted more childcare. We certainly want a certain standard quality, but are we really in the business of once we have the facility up and going, investing more taxpayer money into getting this play structure? Some of my questions that I had on this was, does the state requirement? My understanding is that the state allowed it to move forward without the requirement, or maybe they had a reduced requirement to what's sitting there today. And it's not like that their occupancy permit is going to go away if they don't have the playground. So I wanted to throw that out there. The second was not Cascade, Sandy, Mount Hood Cigar. And they have a proposal for a garage door opening type deal to allow easier access to their outdoor area. Again, great company, great business, be very cool to have a garage door going to the outdoor seating area. Does this match up with blight and taking care of blight out of our urban renewal, the bigger investment projects? I've heard our agency members talk about worried about nickel and diming that agency budget for different projects. So those were proposed today. Those to be on the agenda. And I thought that from our conversations that I've taken part in, I didn't feel like this agency board, that those were up to a level of being on our agenda. Certainly willing to discuss that. And then there was that last project that had been proposed, and then I'll shut up. I just want to give you guys the lay of the land. There's a third project that I'd heard about I was flipping hot dogs at our Longest Day Parkway. That it sounds like the folks, the out-of-state company that owns where Bimart is, that larger Huh?
The strip mall.
That strip mall area out there, which is really unattractive, let's face it. They've come into the city to talk about doing the facade improvement to their location. Now, they'll come in and they'll do something that looks like Safeway did that recently too. Didn't have any of the sandy style and improvements on it. So they can come in and do that and have that. But it's also an opportunity for a larger conversation since they're at the table. Do we want to sandy style that? You think about what Tractor Supply looked like when it was being built, and then kind of the lipstick that went on it. And does it look perfect today? Maybe not, but it looks more attractive than, it looks more holistically what we're trying to do in this city, right? Do we want to move forward with that? I'm not saying that's not on the table to propose. I think there's people that might watch this and be curious, right? If we invest in that. I wanted to lay that down and then kind of shut up and say, hey, like, you guys really feeling we needed to see those projects tonight on our agenda? Should we be allowing those? Are those the kinds of projects you want staff going out and trying to bring to us? Or do we want them going after these larger strategic projects for all those things? See Lori's hand up, I'll go, and then after Lori goes, if there's anything you need to correct,
Sure.
please correct.
That's fair, that's fair.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions and then I'm just gonna add something to your conversation. And one is for Mountain Cigar, is that also a tenant improvement?
That was a facade.
That was a facade improvement. Okay, so that's different. I do wanna, so Julie reached out to me, Liz Page, and I think she reached out to a few other individuals in this group as well. And in reviewing her application, she's been working on it since April. But it falls into the tenant improvement grant. And it does meet the criteria, which is for outdoor play, fencing, and permanently installed play equipment. And I get, and I would agree that I think a little bit of both, right? I mean, keeping in mind that the urban renewal district, those businesses pay into that district, right? So I think it's a project that should come before this board, and if this board decides that they don't want to move forward with it, then so be it. But I think it falls into the criteria of what it's set up to be. She's a well-established business in this community. And she does meet the need of childcare. I do appreciate that she's not adding childcare, but I don't know how she would do that. So where she's at, but she is trying to get some playground equipment, which she doesn't have any, which would definitely benefit her business. So I do think it should come before this board, but I'm one voice, so.
She reached out to me and also, I didn't, know hardly anything about the project. And, when I first heard about it, I thought we were talking about the old building and then I couldn't figure out what the new building would need because it's all new. And so my question is kind of around that whole project did they get any urban renewal money for the new building? And if so, how much? And I don't argue, I don't have that stuff in front of me as to whether it meets the need or not. I just wanted to kind of be able to kind of understand the whole package. I do know, I did kind of look up just real quickly, there are grants out there for playground equipment at the state level. And I'm not saying it's easy or anything like that, but, and I don't know, I didn't have any information as to what the ask was on this or anything, so we haven't seen the proposal. And the other thing is that, she has moved the business, once, and so, is this a permanent place? Because this is supposed to be a permanent structure, so that's just kind of those kind of questions, but as far as whether or not we consider this kind of stuff, I can, there are some smaller projects that come up. My focus would be on the bigger projects that have more bang for the buck. But I'm also, I think it might be helpful because like you said, she reached out in April and then not having any kind of answer till the very decision meeting with us having no clue about it, it's a little bit of disconcerting for her, I'm sure, and I feel very badly for her.
And I just want to make sure people understand, I wasn't part of these meetings all the way up from April. I just found out.
This was, last week at our
I
agenda.
just found out as well. So,
Okay, yeah, so having that kind of a check-in with like, okay, what's on the docket, for these, I mean, when's our last meeting that we had? whatever we had a
May,
meeting
yeah.
in May. And so, getting that kind of stuff just mentioned on the docket of what's on the
What's in the
agenda.
queue?
Yeah,
What are you guys working on in the queue? That would
Yeah,
be nice.
right.
Just
Yeah.
regular desk
just,
work.
just so that we can kind of give some input or whatever about it.
And just to clarify, I think she's moved twice in the last 4 or 5 years. She was set up over by Smoky Hearth and all that. Then we went over on
The old
Pioneer,
red boot, yep.
and now we're over there, and I believe we've spent money at each location.
I don't think we spent money at the first location, but we did definitely spend money at the second location. Just to answer a few of your questions, Board Member Walker.
Yeah.
So the previous money that they got at the previous location, I think was around 7,000 to 8,000, and that was because the previous building owner on that site never made the proper ADA entrance into the building. So to be fair to Miss Littlepage, she never received the grant. It was the property owner. At the existing location that she's now at, the brand new building on Hood Street, Rick Miner, the property owner, received a $41,500 facade grant and then a $30,000 tenant improvement grant to get it ready for childcare. So again, it was received by the property owner, not by Miss Littlepage, that I'm aware of at least. Our contract was with the property owner.
In this case, though, who did you award the contract?
So
to?
yeah, just to let you know, I think the check-in idea is great. I think giving staff more direction is phenomenal. Because we don't want to spend time on things either and then get here and then be told, well, probably shouldn't have brought that. So with this one though, it's kind of unique in that there's no real like design that we're reviewing for the code or anything like that. So she submitted her application. We told her, why don't you go get 3 bids and put together a basic schematic. The schematic that was turned in was very basic, but that's what you typically get from small business owners. She got her 3 bids, and then I had told Jeff and Tyler that I felt it was ready to bring to the board. Her request is for a little under 25,000. So the Urban Renewal Board would, if they decided to award it, would be spending about 12,400, I believe. And then the other one, just so you're aware, the request I think is like 5,300. So with how this is for the cigar company. So how that would break down is that would be about 4,100 that the Urban Renewal Board would give.
I'll just add a couple other comments and then put it back over to the group, but yeah, so both of these applications that we got were inquiries from the business owners about potential funding. We of course then followed up with them and worked through some of that process, but we didn't go out and seek out these grant applications to start with. They were sort of organically developed with those business owners. Definitely over the last week or so highlighted the need to do a check-in beforehand. Maybe we get a preliminary application from a business owner, bring that to the board and say, hey, do you like this idea? Great, you like it? We're gonna go back and work with the property owner and develop what that application looks like. So this, highlights an area of improvement that we can implement relatively easily and quickly
I think
for future grant applications.
I think that also gives them initial feedback about what kinds of things we would like, while they're still early in their planning process.
For sure.
They could possibly incorporate it.
Yeah, so just another area that we can, modify or streamline if we continue these grant programs into the future. And then board chair. I never remember what title we're using. You had mentioned the Bimart complex, for lack of a better word. I think that's really a prime example of what we're seeking some direction and feedback on tonight is sites like that throughout our community. And Kelly has a slide deck prepared prepared to talk about, what some of those potential opportunities might look like. And just knowing that there is interest and support from the board before we start engaging in a lot of conversations around what they need and what they hope to achieve would be helpful to guide those conversations between staff and those business owners.
Chris?
I'll just go back and add a little bit about Julie as well, because I was contacted, probably as most of you. It was brought to my attention, I wasn't aware of anything when I got the email, and what she wrote to me, it was probably for everyone. It said, she introduced herself and said it was brought to her attention that they're no longer on the table for the attendant improvement grant. I didn't know what that was, so I reached out to Jeff and Tyler and I said, hey, what's going on with this person? Can you tell me? Jeff sent me the response he actually sent her. I wrote her back a response that pretty much said, you haven't been denied that I'm aware of, or been told that you're just simply postponed until we have a broader discussion. So then I went, and looked up the improvement program, and I looked at it and thought it was a little complicated. I thought it could be a little more simplified. And when I saw this on the agenda, I was like, oh, this is a great time to do that. And I'm also about setting up a new priority list for us, because I also want to see bigger projects in place. With all that being said, though, if you simply go to our website and you look under the tenant improvement grant program, it says, and I will read you, quote, "For childcare businesses, the following expenses are eligible for project matching funds: outdoor play area expenses, fencing, and permanently installed play equipment." So irregardless of how we change it going forward, it's there today.
Well, no one's arguing, and
And I think, and I'm just saying that I think that her business should be considered. Approved or not, is another story, but considered, because it's under the current criteria. So if I was a business owner in Sandy and had a childcare and I wanted that, and that said that, I'd apply for it too. Doesn't mean I'll get it.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I'm not arguing that it's not eligible. And I'm not arguing that someone shouldn't see it and apply for it.
Right.
But my argument is that it doesn't match up with the goals, as I've personally heard them and absorbed them of the Urban Renewal Agency.
And then as far as the cigar, I think, I don't see anything in there that I felt met the criteria for the door, unless you were gonna stretch and say other improvements as approved by the program manager. Which is pretty generic.
Grant, no, it's not.
It's not much of a secret.
Yeah, it does mean the criteria being a new entryway. Because we don't really define what that means in the criteria.
Okay, well, and then I would give the same consideration for that grant as it should be considered. I think at least by the board.
So I have something to say, but I wonder if Kelly could, before I do, can Kelly talk so we can see? And I'd love to see this slide deck.
And I actually
Yeah,
have something else to pass out to everybody that I just got at, when did I get it at? 2:25 PM today. That I would also like you to take a look at and give us feedback and direction on as well. So if you want me to do it, I'll whip through these pretty quickly if you want me to do
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Okay. I'm the worst on Zoom. Okay. Okay, there we go. Let's see. Okay, so I'll whip through this pretty quickly. Threw this together pretty quick. So I just want to give a very, very brief background, just to remind everybody where we came from. When the facade program went into place, I believe it was 2008 or 2009 by my predecessor. The original facade program was 99% paid for by the Urban Renewal Agency, 1% paid for by the private property owners. When it was done at this time, we approached everybody, and then they could either join or not join with a 99.1. I don't know why the people turned us down, but we did have a few property owners that did. Maybe they didn't want their taxes going up or something. So that was the original. We then kind of made a new facade program. I think it was starting in like 2013. This was also done by my predecessor. And then it's up to 41.5 in URA expenses. And here's, it kind of escalates. So the smaller projects get a larger percentage of URA money. And then David launched the tenant improvement program, I believe in 2014 or 2015, somewhere right around there. And as you're all aware, that's a matching grant up to $30,000 you can get from the URA.
Kelly, under the existing facade program, no one's really eligible for 41.5, right? Because even if they did $100,000 project at 30%, they'd get 30 grand. They could
No.
41.5.
No, how it works is the first $5,000 we pay 80%. The next 45,000, yeah, the next 45 we pay 22.5. Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
There have been.
Just didn't say that. So-
Yeah, I just pulled out part of the diagram. So strategic investment properties, these are just some properties that I've heard mentioned.
Hey, before we leave.
Yeah.
On those tenant improvements that we've done up to now. Have we done tenant improvements for the same location multiple times yet?
That is a really good question.
Or is it?
I didn't run the program until very recently, but I don't recall doing a second one for the same site. We definitely.
My question is more on how effective is it at getting and keeping, really correcting blight and making it a livable commercial space as opposed to businesses that may be there 2 years and gone and now we're.
Oh, I gotcha.
That sort of thing, right?
So Brady's Brats or Brady's Burgers right over here. that was done through a matching grant, and I think without our money, I believe that business owner or that property owner would have had trouble pulling off that project. The previous tenant had illegally gutted the spot, and so he was left with a giant mess.
So in that case, we had a blight.
In that case, we really need to help him, yeah.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of the other ones. I do think it helped actually with the current location of Grandma's House Childcare. I know the 30,000 plus the 41.5 factored in heavily into Rick Minor's decision to go through with it.
To invest.
Yeah. That's what he told me at least.
I think we tried to not do additional improvements, but I think that Paola comes to mind. There was some extra
Yeah,
work done in that one.
a
So
lot. There was, it was a mistake.
We gave
I know,
Payola
but-
some money.
it's the only one that
It was
I'm
my
not
mistake.
aware of. Oh, yeah.
Now it's closed. What's gonna go in there next?
But I think it's the only one.
Those are the mistakes I'm trying to avoid.
Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, I would say it has legal exiting now though, so I think it, I mean,
It's up to
If someone
code.
occupies
It's up to
it.
code. It's up to code now, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Cool stuff. Yeah.
And the guidelines of both programs limit it to 2 awards in any 5-year period.
That's correct. So the most you could get as a business would be $60,000 in 5 years.
Yeah, I'm not trying to ask the particulars. I just want to know from an effectiveness, is it getting what was it intended to do?
Oh, the La Happy side, I know that is for sale, but that received a maximum grant award and that's been open for 5 or 6 years now. And now it actually has a commercial kitchen, so I think when it does sell, you'll see another business open in it.
Okay.
There's probably others that I'm just forgetting.
These investments though are designed to be able to stay with the building, even though the tenant may move,
Yes.
maybe even the buyer, the owner may move and shift and all that kind of stuff, but these investments are designed to be a permanent installation, not something that can be taken away. That was a big issue, I mean. Start doing
Exactly
tenant
right.
improvements.
The playground might be, that might be an interesting one, because it might not be the real property.
Well, they just need to be installed in a way that it would be either impossible or very difficult to remove.
Yeah, we're just building a lot of playgrounds these days. It's taxpayer money. All right, so Kathleen wants it like crazy, right? Then you go online and people are like, why are we building all these playgrounds? And then we keep doing it. Okay, so,
Stan.
yeah, right. All right, so, Kathleen wants to jump in, but I'll remind council that we started this because Rich wanted to get a question in here and see the slide deck first, right? So we gotta keep it going here. All right, Kathleen.
Oh, I was just gonna, and it doesn't have to be answered now, but, the idea that, when we put this money in, I know we have kind of had some learning curve. And the idea that, if certain things happen, like if they don't, if we tear down a building and all that and nothing happens for 5 years, the caveat that we can add some sort of thing that the cost is recouped, or at least part of the cost is recouped through a lien or something like that. And whether it's a business like that, and if it's totally closed and not opened again, being able to kind of recoup some of that cost that we did put in with leads. And I don't know, if that's, that you may not have a question or an answer for that now. That's okay.
Well, what I can say just off the cuff is that on like a demolition agreement that we've done in the past, we've liened the property for the amount that they owe under the agreement. We've talked internally over the last week or so too about options of if X is not completed by Y date, then there's a repayment schedule or some sort of trigger so that it really incentivizes those property owners to do something with their site or do something with their building once the board has made an investment. I won't hesitate to say, I don't want to bring before this board an investment of $100,000 and then nothing comes from that investment, right? We want that to spur a new business coming in or new development on the site or whatever it is. And so.
Things to get
having-
excited about. I just don't hear a lot of garage door openings and playgrounds.
Sure.
Okay, let's get back to the slide.
Okay, so some properties that I've heard talked about and one that I wanted to put on here, and I heard the mayor actually mention this place as well. These are properties that I would recommend exploring, and I think you've talked about these. Sandy Marketplace, which is where Dollar Tree is, Weimar. Old La Bamba site, on Pioneer that's been sitting vacant for about 8 or 9 years now. The old 76 gas station that is kind of, they put up the wood around the pumps so nobody will vandalize them, and now there's a fence
Those
up
are
there.
those are the porta potties, I believe.
Yeah.
We're talking about.
So there's that site, but I think it had a petroleum leak at one point, so that's not gonna be a cheap site to remediate. There's the Safeway complex, which I agree doesn't have any Sandy style elements. It's one of the most. It's kind of one of their bigger buildings in town. There's the Smith building across the street that was blue and they're slowly painting it white. And then there's actually another project for the old house on Pioneer. To demo that and maybe strategically help reinvest in a new building there. It's under new ownership. It was previously owned by Alan Fleshman and then Doran Mead, and now it's owned by Maren Hooker. And I have something I'm gonna pass out here in a few minutes to you guys.
Okay, we're all looking around like we know.
Nope, I got some, it just got it at 220.
Explain the
So
marketplace again.
What is the Sandy Marketplace?
the Sandy Marketplace is Mart grocery
Oh,
outlet.
okay, thank you, sorry. You said that.
So here are the pictures, upper left, 76, La Bamba's on the right-hand side, Smith Building in the lower left. So I just wanted to include some pictures of the buildings we're talking about. Here's the Sandy Marketplace, which is the strip mall that was being
Yeah,
referred
please
to.
really define for me, because I don't understand, what is the Sandy Marketplace, right? Because it's,
Oh, good question, yeah.
There's just, yeah, so many,
So the,
yeah.
the Sandy Marketplace is, I'll start from the west and go east. It's scooters.
So it is
It's-
scooters.
Yeah, it's the main facility that has Mart, Dental, Dollar Trail, that. It's where Napa Auto Parts is located. It's where the local buzz, the bank, the
So it's
community
all
credit
those
union.
buildings in that entire.
And
complex.
it's also the Washroom.
Okay.
But they actually keep theirs a little more updated. They kind of do their own thing over there, it seems
And
like.
these are pretty recent pictures.
I just took them like on credit.
Yeah.
Yes, they are very recent pictures.
One thing I can say about these owners is that they do require long-term leases. There's no month to month in any of this stuff, talking 10+ years.
These are just a few things I wanted to throw up real fast. These are transformation ideas. I just wanted to include one that's kind of like a grocery outlet on the left. The Save Mart is kind of in the upper right-hand corner. That's more of our traditional Sandy style look that we go for in Sandy. And then the bottom one, I just want to show an example of what you could do if you really wanted to go all out on the Sandy Marketplace, because you could get rid of the Spanish tiles that they have on it and really convert the outside look. This was done in like Southern California, but you could do something similar. The La Bamba building, actually, years ago, we were trying to convince the property owner to invest more in the building, and we actually had just some little mock-ups done. I have more in my files, but we could look at reinvestment in that building.
What is that? What am I looking at here? Like, I'm
You're-
confused.
You're looking at the building overlaid with a hand sketch.
This is the
Oh,
old
you're
Obama.
talking like the hand sketch stuff?
Yeah.
That's
There's
old
like a
school.
brick
That's a
retaining
roof on
wall.
top? Is that what that is?
No, that, I don't know.
Is
That's
that a
just
brick
this
wall?
guy.
What are we doing here, Kelly?
It's not my sketch.
Okay.
This is actually an architect that we paid.
A fireplace? Is that what that?
I think it's more of like it's like, I think that is kind of what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we'd have to go with this, I just want to show you.
No, we appreciate it.
Some transformation that could
One of
happen.
the things about this particular building is that it has a very low value, that the inside of this building is in really rough shape.
Yeah.
And when it leaked and made all kinds of problems, and created mold and everything, that I'm aware of, has never been cleaned up.
She did re-roof it, since
She did
Carlo
remove
moved
it,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, she did re-roof it.
Cover it up, make sure nobody can.
There's
see
some other
inside.
sketches we had done. So Counselor Sheldon, this might be easier to look
Yeah,
at.
this is better. I have to learn what the other one was.
You don't like the other one. I just wanted to show you real quick, I only have 2 more slides, the before and after of a couple buildings that we invested a lot of money in I think around 2010. So this is one of them, the before and after, a cool printing. As you can see on the left-hand side, it was a pretty
Right.
hard looking building. And really, we put a lot of strategic investment into it, and this is what we turned out with. And then another one, oh, I didn't, the picture, oh, I guess I had to fade in. So the before and after on the Ace Hardware, I mean, you can't really even tell it's the same building at all.
And so, Rich, I know you want to jump in here. The only thing I just want to say really quick is that first slide showing that improvement, the maximum is $47,000, right? You're not getting very much done over at Sandy Marketplace for $47,000.
41.5.
41.5.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so like, that's where, I'm talking to Tyler, and Tyler's like, man, this is not even a Sandy facade improvement. But you want to talk eligibility, this thing's huge, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't qualify, that we can't use it, right, for this. I guess my only point, and I just felt really passionately that it drew us to this conversation is if you do a lot of $8,000, $5,000 projects, you're not gonna have money left over to do the big project. And it's just something for people to be thinking about.
I have another concern about the money that we're investing in these properties, in that the ones that seem to be very successful, like the Ace Hardware store, that they invested not just their 50% share, but they, or whatever the number was, they invested tens of thousands of dollars more. So there's a difference between a company, and I hate to point out the bad guys, but there are some buildings that we've invested a fair amount of money in that have just languished year after year after year. And there are some buildings that we have invested some money in, and they have really done a good job. It's pride and ownership. And I think we need to have some sort of evaluation about how that money gets returned to us. And I think we've got a mixed success ratio here that seems to be needing a little bit more refining, a little bit more watchfulness. I'm not arguing about the playground things and the front door of the cigar store and all, those all may have good, reasonable cover underneath the urban renewal money, but I think that we need to kind of get a look and idea of what kind of company, what kind of owner is going to be given that money that they're going to continue to move forward on really a nice building, which means a good tenant, which means employment, which means money intact
And it's successful.
and all the rest. So I think we've not done a perfect job there.
Hey, Kelly, just super quick regarding this project. I was under the impression by the previous owners of that building that they could not do some of the things they wanted to do with it because of the ERU issue. So if we look at a project like this, how does the new owner get around connection issues?
Yeah,
Is that
so.
accurate, Kathleen?
Yeah.
It's the bunkhouse, steel bunk.
Why don't we just say that? Bunkhouse, yes.
So I talked pretty extensively with our attorney on this particular property, several rounds of discussions to come up with something creative. So in looking at what used to be in there, we've come up with, I believe it's 4 ERUs that it was occupying, with the amount of bedrooms and the amount of occupants. So even if it's demoed, the property itself contributed 4 ERUs, so we can allow a new building to be constructed with a not to exceed of 4 ERUs. I believe it was
Makes
4.
sense.
It was either 3 or 4.
I believe it was 4.
And this was shared with the previous property owner, Mr. Mead, and he was aware of it. And then when it was purchased by the new owner, she is aware of it as well. But her dad's an architect out of Bend. They toured it. They said they don't have any interest in keeping it. They want to demo it. And then they're gonna build a new 3-story building there and not exceed the areas.
What?
Not what?
Exceed the ERU.
What purpose?
It's going to be, she is an artist and it's gonna be for art classes. So if you go into like Happy Valley, there's like the place where you can do like ceramic art.
Yeah.
That is very busy whenever I've been in there with my kids.
Mm.
And then, and not cheap to do. And then there's other things too that kind of like that. I'm not an artist, so I don't really know fully.
It's just to add some clarification for the reporting of this, since no one knows what you're looking at. Shelley handed out a proposal for some assistance in demolishing a arguably derelict building in our downtown area that hasn't had any tenants in it for a very long time. So that's,
Yeah, it's been,
I'll actually note for those watching online, I've added these to the packet. So if you refresh your page, if you're watching this online, you should be able to see these documents.
Just a bunker building next to the old church building on Pioneer.
yeah, it's,
Bunkhouse.
Bunkhouse.
So there's some issues with the.
Yeah, that's
slope
a house.
as well. There's issues with the slope as well, and that the property is not only narrow and small, but it's also steep. So there's lots of issues around the ADA.
yeah, so they're gonna put an elevator in the building.
They're gonna put an elevator in there, I heard.
So-
Okay.
No, that's what their plan shows. So the one thing I do want to let you know is, and the reason why I want to mention this tonight is I just got it today. This is a prime example of a investment property, in my opinion. We have somebody that just came to town with basically money to do a big project. They are looking for some assistance though. She was looking to see if we could help with the demolition, and then my guess is she will apply for the 41.5 for the facade grant. Her father's architecture company is a really highly acclaimed one out of Central Oregon. Rick Wright Architects, and the building that he's come up with is phenomenal looking. It meets our Sandy style to a T. With the farmhouse elements that area of the downtown allowed. So I just wanted to bring it before you. I would encourage you to consider what's being proposed. If you want me to, I can bring back more on this probably in September. Or we could,
What grant pays for the demo? Yeah,
there is no grant.
This is an eligible,
They're asking for.
it's an eligible expenditure
under,
within the urban renewal plan,
so, but not part of a grant.
but there's not part of a grant program.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to clarify.
And so she, as her letter indicates, she wants to move forward as quickly as possible. So I just thought, the timing was good to bring it before you tonight.
Did I miss something?
No, I was just gonna chime in. It's okay. This is a good conversation, so thank you. So a couple things to everything that's been said tonight. In regards to the screening it out, to everyone's point up here, I kind of like hearing. Well, I agree with Stan. I think these should be going to generate more capacity. I also would be interested in hearing the business plan behind that. Perhaps it's to add, I don't know, maybe it's to add outside of infants, and that does by some ways increase capacity or at least the ability. So I'd be curious to hear the business plan behind the money. The simplification, I would be curious what that looks like. Because I think the way it is now, it allows us a little more room. I think if you simplify it down too much, it just creates a little bit, a void that gets filled by other things. And then the last thing is, kind of to this point that we're talking about now, is I'd like to figure out, not just, I think this tearing down of this, zombie building is a great idea. And quite honestly, I would like to know how we can start working together as a city with the urban renewal to kind of get some of these things like the La Bamba building, like the Pioneer building, and how we can maybe work via code and investment to get these buildings so that they don't continue to be zombie eyesores on the community. And I would really like to see that money geared towards that. Go ahead, Carl.
I have a concern about some of the stuff. You see the veterinary building project that we tore down 2 buildings there. Made clean lots of them with the idea that that was gonna become a nice place to build without all the impediments of the, whatever was on that, with the buildings. But it has taken that individual, was it 5 years, 4 years? Kelly, I forget how many, quite a number of, not less than 4 years anyway, to be able to get that point. For some reason, we're not getting these buildings to move towards that, what we would love to see, which would be a nice quality Sandy style with a tenant unit of some kind that's really producing what we want. So there, somehow we need to make sure that this one doesn't end up being a tear down and then a failure. Maybe it's the best thing to do because it's certainly probably better looking than what's in there now.
I think that's
Certainly
that business plan that I'm talking about. Like, I think you hear what the business plan, what the project is that they're wanting to put in there and see if that fits.
So let me jump in on that, and I'm not talking about these 2 projects, we'll return to that, talking more process. So before, like right when I became mayor, when the process was, is we had, I think you served on it before being on council, we had the
Facade improvement.
facade improvement.
It was when I got on council, yes.
Committee.
And then we
And
decided,
and that was a decision-making committee.
It was.
Those decisions did not make it to council.
No.
And council was seeing decisions come out there. I can't say that they're discreet. We wanted more control. And so one of the things I was thinking about coming out of some of these conversations this week is there maybe interest in a committee that's maybe not necessarily as much of a decision-making committee, but more of a vetting committee of these projects before they come to council. And the reason I just say that is does our urban renewal board need to see every potential concept that staff starts working on come here, or do we want to have, and this committee would be comprised of
sure.
2 or 3,
I think our economic development committee could take
maybe,
on that. role.
maybe.
Disagree with
Certainly
that.
would love to see it, much like we are already doing for several other committees with the advisory boards, which are saying, okay, this is kind of how we think the rest of the board will do, but when we get to a certain level of completion of the planning, then it comes to the council whole, being able to say, okay, we've gone through some of the straw alternatives, and we don't want to even talk about those, but here's some of the things that really make some sense. Let the rest of the council decide that. I like that idea. It seems to be working as long as there's good sharing going on as we move through that process.
Kathleen was gonna go first.
I like what Rich said, and you mentioned about the business plan. And you know, when I'm thinking about this daycare center and all, you know, it was a little bit shocking to me that you would have a daycare and you spend all this money, but no playground. And, you know, that doesn't really, and so having a business plan up front where you've kind of outlined all those, you know, plans and investments that are gonna be needed to make it a successful business, which includes a playground in my opinion, would be helpful. And I think, you know, having, like, I don't know about this art place. I mean, that probably sells in Happy Valley. Is it gonna sell? And I'm sure it's gonna be a beautiful building. But you know, is that kind of a business gonna sell in Sandy? I don't know. You know, I can hope so, but then again, I've been disappointed before. So having that kind of business plan that really they've done the homework before we start pouring public money into even the building, I'm a little bit concerned that, you know, do we have a viable business for longevity? And of course, if it does go out of business, it's not that building investment can't be reused by someone else, but it's a little bit disappointing to see that.
And I'm sorry, I'm seeing way too many of the same businesses getting the urban renewal funds. And, you know, like, and, the crate place,
So we just,
Happy.
we didn't have a lot of multiple users.
so that's not true, but it's not true, right? When you add up facade improvement, tenant improvement, and staff goes all on top of each other. Paola's got tenant improvement and facade improvement. You look at, back to La Happy, they had all the outside exterior, they had the kitchen and all that. They had the cover structure put out there, and they got the plumbing for the heat, for their fire pit out there.
Out of different grants, I see what you're saying.
Right, you stack,
I hear what you're
yeah,
saying.
all out of
I
the
do.
same pool though.
But
And we're just, let me finish the thought. And again, I'm not coming down on the business owner. If I own that business, I'm applying for every single one of these grants, right? And I'm pushing for these. I'm just, that's not the position of the table that we're sitting at. And so there was La Happy. I'm sorry, but I think we're gonna have to check the record a little bit on Grandma's house. My understanding is that there was capacity issues. I think we did fire resistant on the doors, that we did some sort of door exiting or something on that. That was 3 locations in 5 years. We've done tenant improvement, we've done facade improvement. Now we're going back and doing a playground. We're stacking a lot of these. And so that's my concern, is we have a handful of people that keep getting, and again, I'm so happy that they're finding it. Hans has been
But in
money
fairness-
for this,
in
right?
fairness, they're the ones applying. So if other people aren't applying, then, I mean,
But they
that's,
gotta
But
meet
if
our
you- but if you
strategic
look at-
goals.
But if you look at our tenant improvement plan, it's geared specifically toward food service business, restaurant, food product manufacturer, or a childcare business. Those other businesses aren't represented on that paperwork.
Yeah.
So when they read this, they're like, oh, I don't fall into that category. And I think that's what you're saying. Where I talk about, we can make this easier for people to apply for those grants, the other types of businesses, because right now I feel like it is very geared towards that specific industry, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're not gonna get anybody in that Sandy Marketplace applying because they don't represent any of those businesses except for maybe Scooters and Young Teriyaki or and then now Annie's, right?
I'm so sorry, guys. It's Chris, you had your, I wanna let you in. here.
Okay, I got lots, sorry.
Yeah.
Chris, you mean you wanna talk?
Maybe. So first, I just wanted to clarify a few things. And you probably all know this anyways, but La Happy isn't closing because of lack of business. They're closing because they're retiring and moving out of the country. So, you know, there's some of those things that do come up. I do know about the vet clinic. I had a conversation with him a few months ago. And I don't remember what the holdup was with COVID and all that when he first got it, but now the cost of being able to build materials has grown so much and doubled so many times that that's making it unaffordable.
Right.
And then you mentioned Scooters, and I know they wanted to cover structure, but the landlords wouldn't allow it. So, you know, so some of them are trying to do that. And I guess some of my other questions kind of that come up is, how do we keep, like you're saying, like grandma's house, if we gave some of the grants to the property owner and we're saying, let's go back and look at grandma's house, how do we differentiate the business from the owners within that 5-year, $60,000? And then I guess my other thought was, can we, along the lines of this demolition, if we say, I want to see your business plan, what are you going to do with it? Great, but is that holding them to that business plan? What happens if they decide to build a cafe there instead of an art studio or something? How does that come about too? So those are some of the things that are going through my head. I kind of like the idea personally of the art thing, because I think we need some more activities and some cultural stuff, especially, I'm thinking tourism, I'm like, oh, there's something we could, put out there to try to draw people in from other areas. But that's just kind of some of the thoughts that have went through my head with this, is it's almost like everything's a case by case separate issue. And I love the idea of having people look at it beforehand before they bring it to us. So it's more in a complete package.
So one thing I was gonna mention just real quickly is that, so if you did award the demo contract and the facade grant, the most you're looking at is about $53,000 between the two. If they knock down a building that basically has zero value and put a 3-story building, even if the art studio only stays there for 5 years, you're getting a building with probably, I don't know, $600,000-700,000 worth of improvement value, which then gets taxed.
Yeah.
So for tax increment financing, it definitely makes sense to try to prod that thing along.
Right.
I would also add, just from like the demolition perspective, one of the main objectives of urban renewal is getting rid of blight. And what is more of a definition than a building that's been vacant for a decade, that's suffered from a fire, that has broken windows, than blight and being cured, right? I mean, a vacant lot that doesn't have that sitting on it is arguably better than
Mhm.
the blight that is sitting there currently.
I think we should tear it down tomorrow.
Is there anybody that's really
Yeah.
fighting that?
Hey, the one thing about the business thing though, just real quick, I want to point out is into the grandma's place. I think, again, I respect that. I think it depends on why they're coming for the grants. Because if they're filling a need in the community and say she's allowed to take 10 kids, and again, to Stan's point, but now she's moving to a place that takes 40.
Yeah.
Then I'm for it
I'm in.
again, right? I think, and so again, that's why it's important.
What about if she,
I'm
what about if
okay what
they're-
they're getting to, because I think it's two different buildings that we're improving. We're increasing our capacity. That is different than saying, hey, now I need this.
I don't know if this is the case, but what if where they take 20 kids and they have an exemption for the no play structure, but they're about to lose their license because they don't have.
Yeah, so
I'm
that's.
not saying, I don't know.
No, that's the exact question I asked. It changes my mind.
Yeah, that's that business plan.
But-
Why do you
Yeah.
need that structure?
Yes.
For sure.
Other than just a
Yes.
structure.
But also, like, keep in mind, again, I would like to see those come before this board, both of those applicants.
Mhm.
And I want that building demolished too, don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not saying anything against it, but she hasn't applied for any grants yet. We're getting very excited about a project with no grant application, but we have local businesses here in this community who have applications turned in and are ready to go, and they've been working on them for some time, and that's not fair. To sit and have conversations about things that aren't even in the queue yet. I have ideas, yes, but not-
But this is a little bit of a brainstorm.
It
head
is,
in the
it is.
clouds
Let me
thing. I think that's
retract
where
that. I
that-
didn't
No
mean
one
that
put
as
it
harsh
on
as
the
it
agenda.
came out,
No one put it on
but
the
what I
agenda.
meant was,
Except for
it's not
Kelly at 2
fair.
o'clock.
It's not fair to those businesses to be thinking about prospective opportunities when they're sitting in the queue, is how I meant to say that.
Yeah, I'll just let you know on this. It's like, we're already having the conversation about strategic investments. I just thought it was an opportunity to talk about it.
Mhm.
There, if I did a report, all it would be is like a paragraph and it would say, here you guys go, and then it would say, staff probably recommends approving it, so just so you know, so. I could bring it back in September if you want. It's just, there's not gonna be much more than what you got before you right now.
Yeah, so if the state, that was like verbatim, I think I have in a text I sent to them. My mind totally changes under those kinds of circumstances, right? If all of a sudden we're gonna lose the childcare facility because we don't have a playground there, like those are the kinds of dynamics for our decisions, I think, that we want to know. So like, let's explore if that was the case. I would still have some reservations, but a room for compromise for me would also be public access to that playground in non-operational hours.
Mhm.
And I've seen other playground facilities within childcare be able to negotiate that with the state. I'd want to see a greater public asset from that as well. So like I said, I can move on this, but not under the circumstances in which it was currently presented. There's multiple board members that want to see it presented, that's a whole nother topic.
I just
but-
want to see it presented because I
Yeah.
want them to have a fair shake at making their request.
You have two
Whether it's gonna be approved.
board
or not.
members that really want to talk.
Look over here, man. Look over
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Pick me.
Oh, sure, yeah. Okay. I heard that last from this side. so I'm trying to
Can I ask a quick question about grandmas? Just thing I would like to see is how many openings do they have? Is this making a difference on parents putting their children in there by not having a playground? So that would be one of the deciding factors for me to making the business successful. So,
Please.
All right, I'm gonna do my list. We got 2 minutes and problems too. Never done. That's not- So first of all, the grants are not a right, so I think it's very important for us to, even though they meet criteria, that does not mean it's a right. It's still very subjective. It's not like the clear and whatever code that we have to have, where you have to prove it when it meets that. So with that, we really need to get crisp on the why behind the programs themselves. I also, as a former renter, for commercial property, I really think our grants and money should be tied and granted to landlords, owners of property, not the tenants. Because I think we have a better commitment for longer term, because they're looking at it from the long-term rentability and everything else. I think getting into the business case of somebody else's, I made a beautiful business case for my restaurant. It was blown within the first 2 weeks of operation, so I think you waste a lot of time going down that, but having somebody who owns property and is committed long-term to something that's marketable and so forth, I think to me is more important than renting to a tenant. And those arrangements, I mean, the money can still be there. It's just the landlord now is the contract holder and applicant. So. Next thing, that's strategic. I've said before, I don't like the nickel and dime thing. I'm very much in favor of large projects that make a big difference. So, and things that reduce taxpayer burden long-term. So before I advocated for the building of a community center using urban renewal funds. That still is a very economical, from a taxpayer perspective, opportunity. One of the properties you didn't mention is that empty lot we have sitting in front of the bunker building. So, as long as we're throwing out things that are just sitting there, that's one that I think that we should be thinking about. And lastly, I support the idea of a committee to screen these things, but only after we make a lot crisper what our priorities and things that we're trying to accomplish with these programs are. That's it.
So my thought was the last two things that Don put up there. I think it's important that we look at the bigger picture, in that we have said for years now that we would need to put some sort of parameters on how we're going to spend the money. We still have yet to do that. I actually am in favor of a few small projects, get things off on and started to come maybe even a testing to see how effective these people are. But I do think that the bigger projects are the ones that are out of the hands of some of these folks that are one-ups. Not the ones that are deep pocketed like, Walgreens and those kind of things, Denny's. But the ones that we have a lot of, which is the one building, one owner. They've had that building since they settled in it or maybe even built the building. So it's important, I think, to find a way to structure how we spend. And that's my point. And I'll quit.
Definitely you had one thing.
Yeah, quick, the one with the cigar company, the question I asked about that is that, putting in, they have to smoke outside on that little porch, and so putting in a garage door seems like then the inside becomes a smoking business that you're not supposed to allow, so that would be my concern about, calling it a door is a little more than, what it is.
Isn't it 25 feet away from an entrance that you're supposed to be 25 feet away from an entrance for smoking?
I think it's 10.
10 now, okay,
I don't know, they
still,
sit out there and smoke cigars, I know that. so.
right.
They
Yeah,
like the smell.
Yeah, it's just, and then just the idea that you mentioned about, like this, what's the name of the shopping center?
Sandy Market.
Sandy Marketplace, yes, that's all owned by one business, but it's many businesses, and so the idea that we have this limitation of $42,000 when we have so many businesses, I guess I'm not married to that rule when you're talking about multiple businesses. That I think there's,
It's the
you know,
wrong program
potential.
to fix that.
Right, so,
problem.
so is there interest in, staff work to sit down and work with the out-of-state owners of the Sandy Marketplace? To see if there's any interest in
We need to
collaboration.
do a priority goal session that's gonna be a little longer than our work session.
What I worry is I don't disagree, but you could miss the opportunity. And when you miss the opportunity, you don't know, I mean, look at that building. I don't know how long ago, the last time they came back in and did this.
If you do that, you need to look at the entire package. I know that Chris is over there talking, but I'm gonna barrel in here because I've kept my mouth shut, but I think there are those things, landscaping that needs to be dealt with. There's some parking, there's some asphalt kinds of things that need to be dealt with. Don't just look at what we have that we can give them, but I think there are some leverages that we can use to make some of the other parts of that building much better. How long we've been talking, how long have I been talking about the dead bushes out in the front? They need to be fixed, really.
I just want to say, because we're running out of time, and we have people in the queue waiting to have their stuff heard or denied or
Right.
whatever it is. I do agree and wholeheartedly of us looking at a different way to review this, and maybe I like the economic development side. I like negotiating with Sandy Marketplace to improve that facade, but I think that we don't stop what's in the queue today and make them everlasting wait. I
No,
think
no
we
one
need
has
to-
suggested that.
I'm just making that clear. I didn't say they did. I want to get to the point where those people can move forward
Yes.
and they can be brought here and then get heard and said and done.
Get an answer.
While we, at the parallel side, enhance our process for the overarching goal
I'm
of
fine with that.
the program. I'm still not boss.
Push forward.
Do you want, what, for the demo, do you want me to bring some back? Or do you want me to tell her we'll move forward with signing a contract, or do you want to say no?
We want you to get it demoed.
Well, I think we want an official application in front of the renewal agency.
Yeah, there's nothing to submit though, because there's no grant for this. So all they would submit is an email or a letter.
Past practice has been either the city saying, hey, we've got a derelict building,
But I
we'll assist you, or hey, I've got a derelict building.
Yeah,
Can
we've
you
never
assist
had to
me?"
fill out an application.
Yeah, but I recall there to be several meetings that I sat as an audience member in when we removed the two buildings that Carl was talking about. I remember a counselor that sits in Counselor Smallwood's seat having real concerns about the historic preservations of those buildings. I mean, very distinctly remember this. This was not a staff received an email, turned around and said, yeah, let's knock
Well, we
down.
could bring a contract.
Oh, yeah,
approval.
no, we definitely brought it before the board as far as getting the approval.
They didn't apply though, but just to be very clear.
Yeah, but we can have a letter of interest established and bring it back for your guys' approval. That's.
I mean, I'm cool with it. I just feel like there's a process.
I need to get something
I
going.
want some,
The
I
elephant
want
in
some
this
sort
particular
of.
room is, you just described a good business plan,
Oh, we need to
well-financed
get money.
opportunity. It's asking for $70,000.
Like $11,000.
Yeah, we only pay 50%.
I mean, I wanna
in
go
that
get-
practice,
It's a
so.
Why would you say no?
multi-million dollars plus project?
Is we'd
Why?
rather drive down the road and see the two vacancies.
Let's get something done on that.
I don't
property.
disagree,
think
I don't
that's-
disagree with you, but.
We're way too long, we sat here.
If there would.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Which is the
if somebody
plan.
else bought it,
No,
you
but
know,
what,
I don't know.
had a better plan.
Having walked through it, that's not gonna happen.
And my last
They don't use
comment
too
would
much
be
of
to
the-
add
the money.
what I think I just heard you say on this. I have no problem approving this at 50% today, based on what I've just heard. I wouldn't want to waste time with that, because we don't pay the whole,
Well, if we not
if
pass
if
that-
it's 25,000, we only pay half of that, right?
It would be 22, we'd be paying, 11,000.
I wouldn't want to wait a whole other month for another meeting. to
$11,200.
It's more about the ability for the city to back them up and say,
So,
we really want you to do this, than it is about $11,000.
Carl, can I interrupt you?
Go.
I make a motion that we authorize staff to move ahead with approving the expenditure and not to exceed $15,000 to demo this.
You say 1.5?
15,000, not to exceed.
Sure.
I'll second.
I'll even second. I'll third it.
All right, there's a motion from board member Hokinson and a second from Sheldon. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed nays. Motion carries.
That was violent agreement.
Oh, I get it.
All right,
The last thing I was to say is that we might want to consider these others. The next economic development meeting is August 14th, and it might be.
I've heard our commissioners, that's why I wanted to have the conversation. I can't remember a single time we have a conversation like this, and I haven't come back with it, you know, but, all right.
But so can I,
But I will tell everybody. You have a chair that, unless I hear a lot of different things, is showing up and voting no twice.
so point of clarification,
Hmm.
I believe board member Walker was referencing bringing it before the Economic Development Advisory Committee for review,
No,
but I've heard.
No,
needs to come back.
No.
that's a city.
That's- that's what my
We don't have
clarification is.
that ready yet, so
Okay.
it's gonna come back to the.
Their
I
applications
appreciate
are
that.
ready.
Thank you, yeah, all
I
right.
think our next urban renewal agency board meeting was scheduled for the first meeting in September. Is that right? So we had penciled in.
Don't put it out too far.
Can have it
I mean, I
whenever you
guess-
need it.
we can do it.
That's, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I just, yeah. So do you want the people in attendance?
It's up to
It sounds
them.
like- Well, but no, but Mayor, you guys were asking, you wanted a business plan at one point, there was questions, and I didn't get clear direction on that, so I don't know what to go back and tell these business owners.
And I guess it looks like all the other ones, I mean, just, when we did the survey one, the guy came in and kind of talked, and this
Make
is
the
what his
case.
plan was and made a case for it, that's really what I'm looking for, what's the plan there?
It
And,
kinda
I
gives you
mean, I
that
think
first-
nowadays with, what, I'm sorry, Carl.
I'm gonna say, it gives you that first glance of whether or not this guy's committed or not.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't show up at all.
Yeah.
If they show here and they do like you're talking about, I'm excited about that.
it's, that, I mean, I think that's really what we're looking for. I mean, I'll speak for myself, but that's what I'm after.
It'd be great if they wanna come and advocate for the projects, we will totally provide the opportunity to do so.
And my comment about a business plan wasn't for these two little things. It was for, bigger stuff in the future, kind of having that as part of the bigger picture.
Everyone, ready?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to adjourn. All right, we'll be back to the actual city council meeting. All right, come back, have a 10, 11, 12.